So, how would you describe the actual role of being an editor? What do you actually do in practice? And how does it vary across the different authors with whom you work?
That's a good question as well. It varies quite a bit. Some authors come to me with their book incomplete, and I end up ghostwriting part of it with them. Very often, I use track changes and Word, and uh, so I'm able to stick a lot of comments in their manuscript as I go through it, but also make direct changes. And one thing that's very interesting that I didn't expect was a lot of authors want me to write stuff for them, and then they can go in and tweak it a little bit. But I use the margins to, I'm not a fluff editor. I don't fill those margins with, cute pats on the back.
I can attest to that.
And you can attest to
Yes.
that. And when I taught, I would tell my students on the first day, you see the door? There's an imaginary coat hook there. Hang your ego up on it.
Yeah.
So I use those comments very fruitfully to explain stuff, but sometimes it is more efficient to make the actual changes in the manuscript if if the author doesn't like them. They go in and they change them. They reject my changes, or they say, "Oh, I see why she needed to do that, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit so that so that it's mine." And there's all different levels of that. So that's really fun. It's very collaborative, and the track changes are a wonderful tool that way because the author knows that they can always change them. And what I get across the board from authors is that they accept about 95% of my changes, which I'm really happy with. I expect them to not love everything. But we're identifying in the manuscript where there's a need for improvement. So to go back to your question, however, some manuscripts need lots of developmental editing, scenes moved around, extra chapters written, that sort of thing. And then other books really need what's called substantive editing. And on my website, I talk about all the different kind of service edits I offer, but that's one where it's really just making the language pretty. They've got the full story. It's a great story, but their language is clunky. And then, of course, there's copy editing, which is almost like a glorified proofread is a copy edit
Yeah.
where I'm going in and just tweaking little things and adding punctuation where it's missing, better word choice, typos, that kind of thing. I tend not to do that as kind of a service edit in general, because usually if an author needs a lot of that, they also need the other stuff. So copy edits are if I'm assigned one by a publisher that I work with, which I've got a couple that I like to work with, then, I'll do it as a straight copy edit and I'm not allowed to touch anything else. But with my private clients, what I offer is kind of a holistic edit where I'm doing everything at once. Hybrid publishers they like to have you do service edits. Financially, it makes sense for companies because they get to bill for each individual edit. So they don't want you to go ahead and do what the copy editor's going to do. They
Sure.
want that to be a separate service edit. And a lot of times it is good and it does make sense because an editor can focus in on one type of editing. I personally, with my kind of ADHD all over the place personality, love doing it all at once. I'm happy to find typos as I make big major structural changes to the
Yeah.
manuscript. And I
I was
think,
always impressed you even would find things or do find things like for consistency, book over book, like
yes, that's very
titling,
important.
terminology, and everything. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's very impressive.